Hey everybody, Matthew Ashton here with the Alone series, sponsored by Wolf Den Outdoors, where we watch the episodes of Alone and do a live commentary. Again, if you want to watch along with me, you can go to Amazon.com, go to the Amazon Prime. If you're already a member of Prime, you can get signed up there. If not, you can go to History Channel and sign up for an account through your TV provider, and you'll be able to watch all the seasons of Alone. Highly recommend doing that. This is a great show. I love watching it. We are going to go ahead and kick things off. So I'm clicking play now, and we'll talk through the recap of what they're going through. Right now, we're down to 5 guys. First quit was Josh within the first 24 hours of having the bear come into his camp and scared him. He scared it off, but decided he didn't want to deal with the bears. Next night, Chris had some wolves behind him, got spooked, and he left. The next day, Joe quit. Joe Robinette, he popped out. He lost his ferro rod. And so he quit out. And then the same episode, they had Wayne leave. Wayne had a bear actually charge him. And then just recently in the last episode, Brant was not properly filtering his water, and he was drinking brackish saltwater, seawater. Got some hallucinations, some cramps, and got pulled, and he quit and decided to leave. Even if he had to decide to leave, I honestly think they would have medically pulled him. So right now, everybody's kind of doing what they're doing. Mitch just got a great fish, but he was cooking it in his camp, which means he attracted some wildlife. He got a cougar. Come check him out. So it's interesting. We'll see what happens. So, all right, we're through the recap. So I love how they zoom all the way into Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island's huge. So we're still on day 6. We're still in week 1, and there's 5 guys out right now. So, again, they're going to come back and recap what happens with Mitch, that, he caught like a big 11-pound salmon, so he gets like 5 pounds of meat out of it. The way he cooked it, he ended up roasting it over the fire, which creates a big, big smell footprint. So he's got a cougar that came to visit him, like 10 feet from his door. To his credit, the other guys who, when they had animals come in, they called in and quit. To Mitch's credit, he just buttons everything up, leaves the fire going, and sits there with his knife and his flare and everything just to kind of keep him prepped. And he went to sleep. So I was like, okay. And they got bear spray. They've got some other defensive options. But again, none of these guys brought a freaking bow. I think the only one who did was Justin, I think. So I guess they said cougars will attack humans. Most I ever hear normally, for the most part, is they attack what's moving. But he's keeping himself pretty well zipped up and just kind of trying to go to sleep. So he just heard something snap. That gets his attention. See, the hard part about those snaps, you can get pops from a fire. He's got a fire outside of his tent, and you can just get that snap and pop from there just as much as you can from anything else. You hear that crack. That crack can be a twig. That can be your fire just cracking and popping as the wood dries out. That's unnerving. He zips it all the way up. He just wrapped himself in a burrito for that cougar. Not really. I think he just was like, I've had it. I'm going to shut things out right now, which is sometimes what you have to do. And it's rough when you know you got a predator that close. So he's still got all of his stuff, but he's in a pretty small shelter He built the tripod, did a little tripod shelter, which is good. It keeps him secure from the back end. Again, this comes down to some of these other guys in A-frames. If I had an A-frame, I would not. If you had the fish in there and the cougar wanted to come see you, the cougar could come in the front or the back, and how do you know which one? And So he's got a bit more secure of a shelter that he's dealing with, which I think is good. Like that's what you want to do. So they came back over to Dustin. They've been looking at Dustin a lot in the last episode. He took a spill over some logs and some wash. I don't know. He looks like he's having a bit of a hard time, but I didn't do anything stupid. Because last time he wasn't. He was filming and he was watching this other log, didn't watch where he was going, and he went ass over tea kettle over a log and he almost hurt himself. So the big thing right now is nobody knows if anybody else is out or not. So for all of these guys know everybody else is out there. Everybody else is having a good time. So he's got a little sea otter out here. That's actually pretty cool. I mean, that stuff's good to see. So he's hanging out there. I mean, everybody's been out there a week, and you don't know how good all these other guys are. That's competition. I mean, you're really thinking about this. Like, are these other guys out here? Are they fine? Are they doing better than me? And you really don't know. So he's checking with all the ties to see what he's got, and you get stuff. I've seen all these guys. They're all coming out and seeing what they can find in terms of driftwood or different thing. The interesting part, he's getting all these big logs. He could actually use the driftwood. It's already cut up. Loggers cut it down, so he's got all this logs and wood and stuff. He could probably build himself a decently secure shelter out of it if he wanted to. But the problem is he's got to move it all, and those are heavy logs, and that's a lot of calories. And the only person I've seen get food right now is Mitch. I mean, some of the other guys, they're foraging for stuff. They're getting kelp. They're getting seaweed. He just got a pallet. A wood pallet like that's going to be great. He goes, I found a front porch. That's a good thing to use it for. I'd even use it for firewood. Keep the firewood up off the ground. Allow it to dry out. That's thinking there. And again, these guys are allowed to use whatever they find. So all right. So we got Lucas again. Oh, it's Lucas. I keep wanting to call him like Austin Justin. I can never remember his name. It's Lucas. So Lucas has been around. Lucas has the same idea I do. He wants to get a boat and go fishing. We already saw Mitch do a little coracle boat out of a bunch of leaves. The biggest problem with the coracle that he made, with it being stuffed full of leaves and stuff, is it puts your center of gravity up pretty high, and it'd be pretty easy to flip it or get it to a point where it started taking on water. So it'd be cool to see how this boat works out for Lucas. Alan and Sam are trying to prep for a storm. They got a big one moving in. Sam's shelter's taking a heck of a beating. I mean, they get big winds coming off the ocean. So he's ready to just hunker down, and that's kind of what you got to do. And you think about, this is what animals do. Animals do a lot of prepping. Alan's doing this. Alan's cutting a bunch of firewood because you don't know how long this storm could be. This storm could be the one thing Lucas does, it drives me nuts, is he cuts up this big ass firewood. Like, he's cutting big freaking logs. And I mean, I kind of get why he does. They burn a long time. They can keep them warm, but it's so much calories going into him trying to do this. Alan's booking it to try to get some firewood so he can do that. I mean, that's really what you got to do. My biggest concern right now is he's got it balanced up above his head. He drops that could bonk him. That could bonk him real good. He's feeling cranky, probably from just the hunger and the feelings. I mean, it can weigh you down pretty good. I mean, it's going to happen. You got a storm moving in. The storm's going to affect you. And storms in these areas can be huge. I mean, these islands get a dozen feet of rain a year. You can get a storm come in for 5 days, and how are you supposed to go get fish or firewood or food or anything like that when you got that big of a storm? So Dustin was out. Dustin's getting off the beach and away from everything he's got. And that's smart. He's bugging out to get back up and in there. So he just made a good point that in these types of storms, if you don't have some way to protect your fire, the winds can blow the fire around. It could potentially, I mean, you're in a wet enough environment, you're not going to light anything else on fire, but enough winds, like they're going to get 40 to 50 mile an hour winds. That wind's enough, it can blow out the fire, especially with the rain and everything else. The biggest thing they got to look and check is for widowmakers, which is a tree that could fall over, branches that could break in a storm. And that could be dangerous for them all right now. They're watching all these trees move. It's unnerving to watch the pines sway. It's interesting to see because you see these pines just swaying and moving. But when you think about it, unless the trees are dying or dead, all these pines grew up to be that 80, 100 feet tall that they are with this wind. They have grown with the intent of dealing with these winds for years and years and years and getting strong and building themselves to be able to handle this. So it's unnerving and scary, but I think he's going to be okay. I mean, the gusts are scary because the gusts come in and you hear everything move and the branches creak, and you kind of wonder, is the tree going to drop on me? A lot of ways to die in the woods. That's what this show should have been called, not Alone. It should be called Ways to Die in the Woods. There you go. There's a new TV show idea for you. It's like that book, I think it's a movie, 1,000 Ways to Die. There's a TV show. I don't remember what it was. It was something I remember my friends were talking about. It might even be a YouTube channel, but that's what this show should be called. So far, we've had bear, cougar, loss of fire, so you can't maintain heat, water poisoning and hallucination. Now they've got all this rain and wind, and that surf's moving into that's some big surf. You do not want to be near the beach with that stuff. I mean, they're getting some good swells. So Sam's out trying to keep his shelter put together. And the biggest problem with these, particularly these tarp shelters, is the tarps basically act as a sail. And so wind like this can come in and it can tear the tarp off. It can push it. I don't know how a natural shelter would hold up, but I'm almost inclined to say, like, if you had a bunch of branches and the branches were pushed down, it would hold up a lot better than the tarp would. And that's what Alan's shelter is. Alan's shelter is built where I think he's going to probably be the most protected out of anybody. The problem Mitch has is the tarp he's put over his shelter because his canvas tarp isn't waterproof. That's like this flat. All it takes is wind to come through and push it at just the right. When you're talking 40, 50 mile an hour winds, the rivets on the tarps can tear out. You can lose it pretty freaking quickly. And if the rivets tear out, there's no putting it back up. Oh, okay. We finally see Dustin. I thought Dustin had an A-frame that was just open in the back, but they finally got a picture during the day, and he's actually got wood in the back. So good for him. That's been my concern, and so that's good for him that he got that up. I mean, Mother Nature can get you out here with what these guys are going through. It's bad. So one of the things I've noticed is they typically do it kind of towards the end of summer and fall. And so after a while, the weather starts coming in and worse. It gets colder. It may start snowing or doing different things, and it makes it more challenging. The weather changes are going to affect the food, and I feel like they do that on purpose. if they started in the spring when things were there, people could probably go all spring, all summer, and the show would be a lot longer. If you put it where you're heading into winter takes people out in a hurry. All right, so they moved out to Lucas. And so Lucas, the biggest thing, it's hard to sleep in a shelter when it's making noise of this rain. It just gets loud and you just kind of, your mind has to tune it out. But it's hard to, because when you hear all these treetops moving and stuff, it's really, really unnerving. So, so this is interesting. Lucas he built a reflecting wall with some wood, which is, he's got his tent and his open shelter, he's got his fire, and then on the opposite side of his fire, he's got a wall of logs, which is going to help reflect some heat back on him. So that's really good. Sam looks like he's made some arrows. Either he made them or he brought them out with him. But he's hanging there going, I'm surprised I'm still here. And that's really the problem here. These big storms, and again, this tarp, I can see his tarp got torn up pretty good. That's going to mean it's no longer waterproof. It really exposes him, and a really good wind. One of the statistics they threw up said you could get 100-mile-an-hour winds right here. That level of wind could basically just take his whole shelter and go, you're over there, and leave him completely exposed, or it might land on top of him. There's a lot of bad stuff there. Their location is where they're taking full brunts of the storms, everything coming in from the Pacific, and the Pacific can have basically almost a hurricane type storms. So they moved out to day 8, still down to 5 little Indians. So, somebody tapped out. There's a boat on its way. Somebody called it. Somebody said shine it after the storm. Who quit? Sam. No. Man, I don't blame Sam, to be honest. Sam's got a wife who's pregnant at home. Maybe it's not Sam. Alan's talking about that he misses his family. And this is the thing. When you really start, it's hard not to think about your family, and it sounds like an asshole thing to say don't think about your family. But if that's what all these guys are doing, it's bad. It's interesting. They're playing it off so you don't know who did it, because first they had Sam complaining, then Alan did. Now Dustin's like, well, I'm questioning, why am I here? Lucas is talking about, he's having some problems. It's like everybody's starting to break down here a little bit. So we still see the boat. We don't know who got called for it. Mitch said the weather's been wearing on him, so he might go home. Man, they played with everybody. Who tapped? Mitch? No, Dustin. Dustin called it. I was wondering, because they showed him a bunch. I've noticed they tend to show them more when they get closer to quitting. So, his big concern was this shelter. I don't blame him. These trees can fall down on you, and it can be brutal. A tree falls down on you, you're dead. But so he's decided it's not safe there with the windstorms. Those storms are going to keep coming and getting worse. So with the little shelter he had, the shelter wasn't great. It was suitable in a survival situation. When you got these types of winds, I don't think he would have been, honestly, that shelter, he would have had to have done something different. So he bugged out. It's interesting when you look at the map. Everybody on the south side of the map dropped off, and then and it's just kind of gone up and kind of slowly confined. It's not like there's a guy here, and a guy over here. It's all these guys have consistently come up to this one side. Oh, I thought Sam, they fooled me with that. I thought Sam had called it. But so he's out looking to see what he can find for food. That's good. I mean, big storms like that are going to move a lot of debris, a lot of animals, a lot of different things up onto those beaches. So as they recess, that's going to get their attention. So again, Sam's talking about family, and I get why everybody does. I mean, you're out there alone. That's what you think about. That's what you're dealing with. Especially with him knowing his baby's on the way. That's he got a bunch of crabs. Boil them up. You can actually, he got 33 crabs. So he's sitting about as pretty as Mitch is. But, I mean, he can boil those up, steam them pretty good. I was seeing, I think you can eat the interior of the crabs, because I know people make stews out of that. It's actually a common dish in Spain, is to stew up the internal pieces of the crab, like the actual inside shells, the guts and stuff, and actually eat that. So he's hungry, but he's eating these little crabs, and crab's delicious. I love it. I mean, they're a little tiny. I don't know. You pretty much have to boil them to get anything out of them, or any nutrition even. Basically stewed crabs. But I know there's like soft-shelled crabs. You can eat the whole thing, I think. But so now they moved over to Lucas. I mean, when you don't get a lot of sleep like this, that alone can wear on you. When you start getting sleep deprived with animals, with all these different things. All right, he's on a boat. I'm excited. So he's going to start marking a boat. That's a good idea. I mean, you can get out, and there's some pretty easy ways to do it. I saw some people that did. There's a guy on YouTube. I will link to his channel below. It's called, or I can just tell you, it's called Advoco Makes. He basically makes a skin-on-frame kayak, which is basically the same thing. What he's going to do here is he's going to make a frame, put this whole thing together. Although I don't know what he's doing with this big-ass log. He's got some gigantic log that he's trying to do something with. I don't know what he's doing. But what Advoco Makes does is he takes these little saplings and wires them all together into this frame. And he's made skin-on-frame kayaks, basically using plastic wrap. And you can do the same thing for a canoe. So he could get a decent canoe out of this. So, I mean, it gives him an opportunity to fish better. When you've got the ocean right there, the only way you're really going to get much fishing is to get out on it. It's dangerous to do, but I am so curious what he's doing, because he's got a big-ass cedar pole. Again, I feel like he's just making things too big. Maybe that's just me. Maybe not. But, I mean, he seems like he's doing all right. And he's trying to baton with his knife through the entire length of this, 12-foot cedar pole. I love that quote. That's the same thing I talked about, I think, back in episode 1, that it's Darwin's not, the theory of evolution, the theory of Darwin is not survival of the fittest. It is survival of the most adaptable. So when you have these problems, or you have a bear come in, or you have these different things, can you adapt to the situation? So he's trying to adapt. And again, he did it again, where he spent a lot of energy on something that didn't work. The cedar spiraled on him, especially once you split it. If you split fresh wood as it dries out, I do some woodworking. It'll warp. If you plane one side of the wood and not the other, and the wood's not completely dry, it's still green, it'll actually buckle to the side that you planed, because it'll dry out. So that's what I mean. If you can get saplings and some skinnier trees, you can get it together better. But if you're trying to do like this big He-Man canoe, that's going to be hard to do. I mean, there's other options to do a like a burnout dugout canoe, but those can be pretty tippy. It's this is a couple times Lucas has put a lot of energy into something that wasn't really going to work and put in a lot of energy into some big wood. Big wood is definitely one of the problems he had here. I mean, he's doing what he can, and it looks like it's wearing on him. And it can be frustrating. I mean, he's had a couple of these things where it's been just been failure after failure. He's put a lot of effort into a lot of like his shelter's pretty robust with some big logs in. He's got these big logs he was supposed to have a cabin with that were I don't know, man. He's had some chances here, and I think he still's got a chance at making this work. But I don't know. Maybe he'll rethink it and he'll try some smaller wood that's he can use the whole. And one of the problems you get if you split wood like that is you're going to get sharp edges, and those sharp edges can tear up your tarp. So that's why I would go more for the branches, smooth the branches out as a solid round branch because you can wrap it and be okay. So I'd laugh if he floated into somebody else's. All right, so now he's working with some smaller poles. So now he's working with something a bit more about, I'd probably say 2 inches, 2.5 inches, maybe. So he's got to make sure he gets everything smoothed down. I mean, you poke a hole in your canoe, it's going to be problematic. So he's doing this, but he's never actually done it. So I'm trying to look at what he's doing. I have no idea what he's doing right now. I'm looking. He split some big log and he carved it up. I don't know what he's actually doing. He really just asked for paper towels and hand sanitizer. Guide card. Come on. So, I mean, he's still doing what he can do, but I mean, he looks up to his dad. And that's what you got to do. I mean, that's what dads are there for, and dad should be your hero, so that's pretty cool. Oh, he was trying to keep his butt warm right there, and he just about went ass over T-kill into his fire. Oh, that was not good. So, is he making a keel? I'm still just looking at what he's trying to do with this. Okay, so he's trying to make the front. That's going to be a deep-ass canoe. That looks like it's... He says it's going to take him 4 days to build. I watched the one that Voco makes, and he turned it around a lot quicker because of the way it was done. And I'd go check out those videos, the plastic wrap kayak, because, I mean, you could do the same thing a lot quicker. Again, he's cutting up a big-ass branch, big-ass tree. He's cutting up a 10, 12-inch log. You can spend 20, 30 minutes cutting out a single cut on a log. Like, that's brutal to do, and it's a lot of energy that goes into it. I mean, as many of these logs as he'd done, he could make himself a big log floor, and you'd almost have a cabin here. Some of this stuff and just what he's doing to try to make this is interesting. He's carving some type of spike now. Like, it'll be interesting to see what he does with this. I mean, his front keel, he's basically trying to What's interesting is he's shaping his keel like it looks like he's going to have a flat bottom boat. Rather than try to carve it at a bit of an angle and then work off the bottom to try to give him a bit more of a pointed keel that would flow a little better. I mean, he's doing what he can do and what he knows how to do. That's fine. I'm just watching this stuff, and there's a lot of energy he's putting into this. I don't know. They haven't shown what Lucas does for food. He needs to get calories, and he's burning a lot of calories with the stuff he's doing. And so that's okay. He's starting to get. Looks like he's getting his frame put together a little bit. So he's got the single under keel. He's got the underline put in. So okay, he's not going with a flat bottom boat. He's not going for a flat bottom boat. That's good. So he's using. Okay, I'm just watching his design here, and it looks to be decent. I mean, I think what he's got going is going to work for him. I think it'll float. It's just a matter of how it'll handle, how it's going to work out on the waves. Okay, he is going for a flat bottom boat. I thought he wasn't, but it looks like he changed his mind. So I think he just had the pointed, the single rod across to keep his front and back of his boat where it needs to be. But he's got these logs put in. That was a lot of rope to go into that. A lot of rope went into that. But I mean, it's a decent looking boat. It is flat bottomed, which is fine. I mean, it'll handle okay. It's going to be it'll have good flotation. It's not going to handle or want to turn very well or flow very quickly through the water because of the flat bottom like that, where there's no keel, there's no rocker, but it's at least there. So Sam's just in kind of a forager mode. It doesn't look like he's hunting for anything or fishing. I don't know. Again, one of the problems with this show is they can't show you everything every single person's doing. So I don't know if he's got fish lines out or if he's got other things. So he's out looking for kelp, which is fine. Ooh, he found a big one. That looks so nasty. I'm not going to lie. Some of the stuff these guys have to eat, you're like, I don't know how they do it. You see these big, long cuts of bull kelp, and you're just like, how did you... Nasty. I mean, the nice part is some of that kelp looks like it could be good for... If you're able to split it up, let it dry out, that could probably be some good natural cordage. I mean, it almost looks like a bullwhip, so you could use it for cordage. So... Sam's looking like he's missing his family. That's... Again, what I'm seeing with all these guys right now, week one, a lot of it's mental game. It really seems to be. I almost wonder if that's what Lucas was using, was some type of like kelp or natural fibers, because that was a lot of rope to use. And I know they aren't given a lot of rope to go out with. So, I don't know. Sam's getting in his head, he lets his family in his head, and he's right, and, it just tears him up, and it's bothering him, and that's what it is. It's sad to say, because you have to feel you almost have to disconnect yourself from your family if you're going to do this. And a lot of people can't do that. It's mentally rough. And you're seeing the toll this is having on these guys. These guys have all been out here a week. Current record for a winner is 87 days in Patagonia by Zachary Fowler. So these guys are all a week in. I love Alan. He's like, I don't like it out here. It's rainy. It's disagreeable is the word he uses. Rather than saying it's hard, he just goes, it's disagreeable. So he's trying to improve his sharpening stone. He's just making use of things, He's okay. So again, Alan's talked about the high and low tides being his timekeepers. So he's eating with whatever the tide brings in. It's small amounts of stuff, but it's giving him what he's got. See, there he's absolutely right. He says it's worried. So basically, I mean, Alan's a big guy. He's my size. And even if he sits and does nothing, he can burn 2,400 calories in a day. I mean, at this point, his body's burning it from his fat stores, which, I mean, being 6'3" and 240, he's got plenty of it to keep him going for a while, as long as he can keep his nutrition up and his water. But now he's singing opera. That's a nice way to scare off some animals and potential for food. Man, some of these guys, like some of what they do, it's loud. And the only way you're going to find food or animals is to go way the hell away from your camp. All right, we're finally back on Mitch. They avoided Mitch for a while. I'm curious to see. All right, Mitch is out scouting. He took the cougar just fine. So he's along the trail. They got bears. See, this is one of the things. If you look at the bear poop and the game trails, you can figure out where they're going. And he might get into some berries and stuff. Or he could walk into the bear. Oh, he did. Right into the burrow. I don't see a bear yet, but you found where the bear lives. So I don't know that I'd go. He's like, I don't think I'm not going to go check it out. I wouldn't either. That's as close as you need to be. But knowing that if he follows the trail in the other direction, he should come up, and if he's careful and watching, he should come up with some berries. That's why I like game trails. Game trails tell you where everybody goes. That is a big-ass canoe. That thing's got to weigh a lot. How is he going to get that to the beach? That's got to weigh a lot. And again, that's one of those problems with how much those can be. It can be with how much that can weigh. That's going to be real hard to steer and move around. So he's got to be careful. So, see, Lucas did the smart thing. He's got his fire banked with some big logs so he can go out and do stuff and come back and still have a fire. So even if he goes in, he'll come back to a fire and can warm up and dry off pretty quick. That's smart on his part. Oh! That would have been sucky if that broke right there. He's trying to get it up. And I mean, it's heavy. You can see how much he's straining. That's, even with those pulls, that's probably, I guess, maybe at least 30 to 40 pounds that he's trying to hold. And he's holding it like this. That's all shoulders and arms. That's a lot of... It'll be great for him if he gets it out there. But he's also got to go through the brush with it. So it looks like he's going to have... I don't know. He got it out. And he's smart to move it without wrapping it. I will give him that. If he wrapped it with the tarp and then tried to move it, any stick could poke a hole in it. If he ran it into a tree, it'd scrape it, gets a hole, the whole thing's for naught. So he's got a tarp. I mean, most tarps are waterproof. A heavy-duty one, kind of like what he's got, is actually going to be better. It would be... So he's doing what I would have done. He's just wrapping it. Wrapping around the whole things, but that's all you really need to do. I mean, that's going to give him plenty of flotation right there. I've even done that with a hammock. I wanted to make a hammock at a scouting group, so I just ran two ropes from a tree, used logs to keep it distanced, and then took a tarp and wrapped the tarp in on itself. And once you lay in it, that stuff's obviously not going to come out. You're not going to fall out, and it just stays there. But you don't have to damage the tarp, sew it up. It's still a tarp. You can just unravel it off the ropes, and you're back to having a tarp. So, all right, so we're down to 4. And we're still with Lucas. They're kind of revamping back to him carrying it out. His shelter's nice. I mean, I've always voiced concerns about his shelter because it is a very open air shelter. But I mean, it's working for what he's got going. The biggest concern is those big windstorms come in. If that wind comes the wrong way, he's going to freeze, and he's going to get soaked because when you get 40, 50 mile an hour winds or more, and it's raining. The rain doesn't come straight down. The rain comes sideways and can actually come in at you. So that's all right. So he's got the biggest problem is they've been out here for a while. So if his tarp took any damage before he even got it out there, again, you just gotta be careful. So he's doing the go big or go home. It looks like it's floating, but it is leaning a bit. So he's going to have to sit in it in a specific way to make sure he stays. Looks like it's floating. I think he got it. He got it. All right, Lucas. You can go out there with some bait and with some mussels. I mean, if he collects the mussels, cracks them open, puts the mussel on a hook, the fish will go for that. He can go out and even troll. So he can head out there and just drop lines and tie them off of the canoe. Even getting out 20, 30 feet away from the shore is going to give him the ability to be out there and fish. He's saying that it's a little tippy. I noticed that it was leaning to one side, so he's gonna have to ballast it himself. There's 2 options he can do. So, and he's having problems with it tracking, which is it going straight, and that's going to be because it's tipping. But I mean, it works. He could offset it by on the side it tips on. He could set up some buoyancy, set up either a log, like another log with 2 poles going out to it to balance it up a little bit. That would help him out. Or if he just sits on the one side in just the right spot, it'll keep it balanced out better. But I mean, it going straight and how it's tracking is going to be part of how it paddles. He can get out to this little island, so maybe there's something he can find out there. But he can drop for food. He's out there with all this opportunity. That's how he catches fish, and fish will keep you in the game. So see, Alan's doing what we talked about, the problem Mitch had with the cat coming in. Oh shit. There's a lot of problems. So Alan's making a cooking camp, which is good for him. Looks like Lucas is getting himself into trouble with his canoe because he's out with some of the currents. And again, that's one of those problems. If it tracks and it doesn't move very quick, it can be problematic getting back to shore. All right, so that wraps up this episode. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe below. Next week, we're going to go ahead and have episode 6 coming out. I'm super excited about this. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave comments. Love to hear from you. Your own opinions about what these guys do. More than happy to hear from it. I reply to all my comments. Thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you all later.